I sense I know where many of you feel the judge should find that, but we'll see what happens next week. To other matters, farmers to be paid to provide walkers with better access to their land. The government will announce today a new chapter for England's countryside. Here with details, Environment Secretary George Eustice joins me now. OK, sir, can you explain where's the incentive and what do you hope to bring about here? Good morning.
Good morning. Well, one of the things we set out in the new agriculture policy we have is we want to change the subsidy system so that we don't just pay farmers based on the amount of land they've got, but we pay them for the way they manage environmental assets, for delivering and making space for nature, and also in some cases improving access. So we will be having a designated fund, particularly in our national parks, where farmers and landowners can work with the national park to see how they can improve access for the public. And I think there's a real appetite for it. In the last year, access to the outdoors is pretty much all people have had at times during lockdown, and I think many people have found a new connection and want to have that access.
When did you last go for a good long walk in the country, Secretary of State?
Well, I normally go for a run in the country. Personally, I've got, but I have a wonderful area of woodland down in Cornwall where
lovely.
I live, and so last weekend I did go for a run through that.
OK. Well, that's lovely for the walkers. Can I put it to you, though, that the Conservatives are in a bit of a hole at the moment? It would appear that you're losing some of the shire Tories, not shy Tories, shire Tories. I look at Buckinghamshire, I look at developments on local councils. Are you falling out of touch with your core electorate?
No, I don't think we are. Look, we are a party that seeks to represent the whole country. We've been elected by people right around the country, from places like Hartlepool, and of course in all those rural areas and places in the far southwest that I represent. And what we really want to do is to make sure that we, first of all, deal with this pandemic and get that behind us, and then level up growth in this country, get parts of the country that have fallen behind and haven't had the right incomes or opportunities to try to get them on a level.
You don't level up by turning the home counties into a giant housing estate, do you? The people don't like the planning reforms, Secretary of State.
Well, look, the planning bill is going to be coming forward in this session, and there'll be a debate and a discussion about that. There's lots of speculation about what will be in there, but and I know there's some anxiety around that from some quarters. But the important thing to recognise is that if we can get more economic growth in the north, then you won't have those, pressures of increasing population in the home counties. One of the problems we've had in recent decades is that because wealth and jobs and industries have all drained down to the southeast, the pressure for housing on the southeast has been greatest, and that's why you've had to have the greatest volume of house building. So trying to rebalance our economy right around the country is part of the solution to some of the concerns people have about excessive house building.
Noting you're not the Housing Secretary, but you are the Environment Secretary, what did you take from last week's humiliation in Buckinghamshire? You must be very concerned.
Look, by-elections can sometimes come up with results of this sort. We have to take it as a clear warning from the electorate in that area. There's no doubt about it. It was a terrible result for us. People in that area, I think, particularly because of HS2 and. Now, I've been to the area. I know that with that now under construction, there's a lot of anxiety about the damage that's being caused by that in that area. People chose to send us a message and to make a point, and it's important that we do hear that and understand it.
Later today, the Cabinet will meet, and then we will hear what might be moving in the world of travel restrictions. Is it right that Malta and the Balearics are going to go green?
Well, I'm afraid I don't know. This is a debate, and it's something that I'm afraid Grant Shapps will be saying later. So I'm not in a position to say anything. But we are being quite cautious here about the number of countries that can go on the green list. The reason for that is that the greatest threat to us at this stage is that there will be a new variant from another country, potentially a variant that maybe hadn't been properly detected in that country. And that's why we've been taking quite a cautious approach. But equally, we do want to be able to start supporting people's return to travel. And so if we can add some additional countries, we will.
Angela Merkel has said she'd like to see everyone arriving from the UK into the EU to quarantine. Would we be able to stop her?
No, each country is taking their own decisions on this, and so it will be for them to judge what approach they want to take. I'm not sure that such an approach would be justified, given that the highly advanced stage we are currently at now in terms of vaccination, with 80% having had one jab and now 60% having had the second jab. So I don't think such a move would be justified, but obviously it's for individual countries to make these judgments.
Noting that you're also Secretary of State for Food, I see a headline today, Secretary of State, Brussels ready to agree truce in sausage wars. Has peace broken out over the Great British Banger, Mr. Eustice?
Well, I think we're getting some positive indications, and it's always our view, that it's better if we can reach agreement with the European Union on these things. And it didn't make any sense to simply say that there's a ban on the sale of sausages to Northern Ireland. We're still in dialogue with the European Union about some longer-term solutions on the wider issues around export health certificates. And while those are ongoing, I think it makes sense for them just for a few more months to leave the current arrangement we have in place.
So how have we achieved this accord? Who's yielded, or what's been found? What's the mechanism?
Well, we've obviously there was an exchange of views on this a couple of weeks ago during G7. But put simply, we've written to the European Union to say that we think an extension for a further 3 months is in order, while we continue our discussions with them about wider implementation of the Northern Ireland Protocol. And I think there's a growing understanding on their side that probably makes sense. So we don't know for certain how they're going to respond. We haven't had a formal feedback from them. But it seems to me that that's a sensible thing to do for the time being until we can resolve the wider issues.
Lastly, Mr. Eustice, do you share the monarch's sympathy for your colleague Matt Hancock? Do you think, poor man, every time you see Matt across the cabinet table?
Well, I think Matt's done a fantastic job in an incredibly challenging
but
time.
The Queen thinks poor man. Do you, Mr. Eustice?
Well, I don't think
he's full of something? What's he full of? If it's not beans, what's Mr. Hancock full of?
I think he's got plenty of enthusiasm and optimism, given a very difficult situation. I've known Matt Hancock for many years, and I think he's approached this incredibly challenging pandemic that's dominated government decisions over the last 18 months. He's really approached that task with rigour.
Always enjoy our conversations. Thank you for your time. George Eustice, Secretary of State for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, appearing here on LBC at 1 minute after 8 news is next.